Hello everybody and welcome to Mr. Stansfield's educational videos. Today I'm going to be collaborating with Mr. Fontina on a drawing project. Check out mrfontina.com or teach.photo for my website. Today we're going to be taking a look at kind of adapting this project that came out of a drawing book. The project here is called Superimposed Drawings, and it's out of the book Drawing Projects, An Exploration of the Language of Drawing by Mick Maslin and Jack Southern. We're basically just going to try to bring in a photo into Photoshop and create these contour lines as a way to start to understand a little bit more about how lines and contour lines work. So here we have two photos that we're going to open up in Photoshop and try to create something akin to a contour line, and this is sort of the finished product as they lay out here on the Superimposed Drawings project. We're going to be adapting it and working in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and select, let's just do one picture at a time. We'll start with this picture here. Open it up in Photoshop. Now I'm in Adobe Photoshop CC, and most versions of Photoshop will be quite similar. First thing I'm going to do is grab the crop tool here. We're really concerned with the head and shoulders, so I'm going to change the ratio up here. You could choose anything. I'm going to choose 5:7 and then click and drag. Now, something to note, I'm using the classic mode of the crop tool here. The default Photoshop CC mode is a little bit different. So once again, just kind of head and shoulders. I can move this around, and a little bit of space is okay. I could actually change this to 4:5, and that's going to be a little bit more room there if we want it. Go ahead and click enter or return, or if you're cropping, you can always use this little checkbox right here to confirm, or the little no box right there to say no. And hit Command 0 to make that full screen, but that's just a view. Command minus and then Command plus will zoom in and out. It doesn't change the size of the image. Now, I think one of the best ways to do this is to use the filter and then go to stylize, and then we're going to try find edges. And what this is going to do is going to find any point of contrast in the image. You can see here it's almost like a contour image. Let's convert that to black and white by going Image, Adjustments, Black and White. Click OK. Don't worry about any of those sliders in there. And then the last, well, maybe the second to last step, we're going to go Image, Adjustments, and Levels. Anytime you're trying to find edges or increase contrast, here's a Levels slider. You have a Shadow slider and a Highlight slider. And you're just going to drag those up. Drag the shadow slider up or to the right, and then the highlight slider down to the left. And basically we want to create just lines. So finding there's a sort of a point here where the lines, the contour lines will show up, and the rest of it won't quite as much. You can also drag this gray slider around, and I would say something like this is a good start. I'm going to click OK. And then actually sometimes we'll go in Image, Adjustments, and do it one more time. So click on Levels again, and then we drag that shadow slider up and the highlight slider down to increase the contrast. Drag that gray slider up down a little bit. Now, you do have all this sort of stipulation here, stippling, I should say, which is these little artifacting, the details in the hair and against the wall. I think that's okay. We've got the main gist of what the outline we're trying to do here. You can see if the original picture had been taken up against a totally plain background instead of this brick background, that would eliminate those lines. Another thing to think about is the kind of lighting that you're using. So what kind of light do you use to make your portrait is going to make this, what lines show up. So here an even, flat lighting when you're making the picture is probably going to give you the best results for this contour drawing. So we're pretty close here. I think the highlights and shadows are where we want them to be. So we're going to go ahead and go File and Save As and find the right saving point. In this case, it's the folder that I had already put it in, and then name it something unique. In this case, I don't want to save it as image 7577 because that file already exists, and I want to be able to go back and get that file if I wanted to redo it. So, you can name it very specific, so Superimposed 1, Superimposed 2. Click OK. Generally, I recommend the maximum here. And what I'm going to do is pause the screencast. I'm going to go ahead and get the second file to the same place that this is at, and then I'm going to come back. So we have the second file that has been edited the same exact way. If you look up here at these tabs, I have Superimposed 1, and then this other image here. I haven't saved it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. File, Save As. and superimposed 2. If I click on that, I can actually just select 2 and say OK. And the last thing I wanted to show is if you wanted to, now this is sort of an extra step, but if you wanted to actually create the 2 images overlapping on top of each other, we would do that with a move tool. If we select the move tool, which is this top tool here, click and drag this tab, the superimposed tab down here, click and drag this over here, and then line it up so it's kind of roughly the same. Now we haven't, I'm realizing that we cropped both of these the same way, but we didn't resize them the same way. So they're a little bit of a different size. If you wanted to make them the same size, go check out my YouTube channel and look at how to resize an image in Photoshop. In this case though, if we just go ahead and change the blending mode, so you have 2 layers. If you go into the layers right here, you have background and layer 1. And if we just change the blending mode, now I'm not 100% sure about which one is going to be the best, but let's go ahead and just go through and try to choose maybe difference. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So not what we're looking for. Maybe what we'll do, overlay, soft light. Maybe what we'll do is instead of changing the blending mode, we'll change the opacity. I think that works pretty well. So if you change the opacity of the top layer, you can see I have this layer 1 selected here. It will slowly bring those 2 together. And right around 50% is probably good. Now if you have multiple layers, you may have to adjust that. But if you've got the move tool here, you can actually move this around until you have the right kind of thing. The lineup, I guess. You can see again where these lines in the background are a little bit distracting. If you're going to do this, I think that there's potentially, working with a background that's plain is going to be more helpful. But that's basically it. If you wanted to save it, I would only recommend, if you're going to file save as here, make sure the format is a Photoshop format if you want to be able to open it again in Photoshop and edit these layers. Because once you save as a JPEG, if you change that to JPEG, it wouldn't save these 2 layers, so you can't actually change anything after the fact. So we would just go Photoshop and we'd say superimposed, maybe blend picture or something along those lines, and we say uncheck that, maximize compatibility. That doesn't really matter, or you can leave it on. Click OK. Actually, one of the things this will do if you leave maximize compatibility on is it allows you to actually preview a Photoshop file in Google Drive, which is actually kind of nice. So leaving that checked is not a bad idea. And that's it.